A hearty welcome to the 12 tribes scattered abroad and to those who are grafted in. This is the Israelite in America coming to you guys today with a presentation on Black Jews and Black Israel. Now, I did want to preface this presentation really quick by saying that this is one of my earlier presentations that I actually had not originally intended to post on YouTube. This was something I had compiled and put together for family and extended family to kind of just show the research that I had come across, read upon, and seen others present on. But there's so many people coming into the truth every day. So many new people that haven't heard other people talk about this stuff. There's so many people that come in and are Yahweh is waking up his people daily. So I promise you that when some of the information that came out 3 years ago, 1 year ago, 6 months ago, there are Israelites waking up and non-Israelites too, waking up and coming into this and who want to know more, but don't have a baseline established yet. So this is kind of for them. Shout out to Dante Fortson and Teo Ministries. I think they have spoken on I think mostly all, or probably all of the sources you're going to see me mention and present in this presentation. So go check them out. But you can never have too many Israelites spreading the word. So on that note, let's begin. When I say, or anyone else says, Jew, the word Jew, what's the first image that pops into your mind? What do you think of? Is this what you think of when I say Jew? Is this the image that pops into your mind? These people? This, and don't worry, this isn't, we will talk more of this, I think, in another presentation. But I want to ask that question. What do I think of, what do you guys think of when I say the word Jew? Now, we know that these people in this image here, these images that I'm showing, are the people that inhabit the portion of what's known as Israel today in our present time, and all the various issues that go along with that. But how, if these people are Jews, are Judah, right? The returned Judah to the land, as the father prophesied that he would gather Judah, and not just Judah, but all of Israel. But people say that he has. How is it that people say that he has done this, that the Father has done this, if these people are in fact who they say they are, and who the world says they are? How are we saying that God has fulfilled this prophecy? How has God fulfilled the prophecy that he spoke concerning the house of Israel and the house of Judah, that he would ingather them? Because didn't he say that he would ingather them, and they would not only be, the nations would all know it, right? He would gather them from all over, but there would also be an outpouring of his spirit, and that they would recognize him, his son, Yeshua, Jesus, as the Messiah, and that they would accept him and follow his, not only the law that he gave, but accept him as Savior. How has this been fulfilled, if this is what's going on? But before we even, after I put that question in your mind, before we even get too far deep in that, let's go back. Let's go back to the ancient world, to the old world, because that's where all this is going to concern. That's where this is all going to come from, and what we're going to be concerned with. Okay, so real quick, you might be wondering, what does Genesis 10 have to do with Judah, with Israel, with the land? Well, I want to establish a baseline real quick. There's something that I want to establish in everyone's mind here, moving forward, because I think it's missed by a lot of people in mainstream, and even a lot of people that don't claim to be in mainstream. That is mainstream Christianity, mainstream, even messianics that are quote unquote mainstream, or mainstream, however you want to say that. I think there's certain things that are missed in here. Okay, so let's establish a baseline. This is Genesis chapter 10, and we're going to start at verse 6. I got you. You thought I was going to go earlier, earlier verses, huh? No, another time. Now the sons of Ham, Cush, Mitzrayim, Phut, and Canaan. Okay, and these are all studies in themselves. Real quick, you guys can look at this in your own time, or I will provide a bit of a series or a documentary on this. But the sons of Ham, Cush, Mizraim, and Phut. Okay, Cush, at both Cush, Mizraim, and Phut, or all of them, inhabited Africa. Okay, Mitzrayim, as I'm sure all of you are aware, is Egypt. Okay, these is where the Egyptians came from. Cush and Phut are where we get the Sudanese and kind of sub-Saharan Africans as we know them today. But all of these people, Canaan as well. Most people don't actually know that Canaan's descendants not only settled in the land of Canaan in ancient times, but also in Africa. So all of these four guys, okay, Hamites, and they settled not only in Africa and Canaan, or not only in Canaan, excuse me, but also all over Africa. And you'll see something interesting as we go on here, okay? And the sons of Cush, Seba, Havilah, Sabta, Ramah, and Sabtejah. And the sons of Ramah, Sheba, and Dedan. Okay? And you might notice that several of these names here are places, right? Seba, okay, that's another name, that's another word for Sheba, which, as we know, comes up later on with the Queen of Sheba, for instance, okay? Havilah, the land of Havilah, and is referenced multiple times throughout Scripture, okay? Okay, and also Ramah, Dedan, okay? These are places, as well as places named after people. Let's continue. And Cush begat Nimrod. We all know who Nimrod is. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord, wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. And the beginning of his kingdom, Nimrod's kingdom, was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. Okay? Out of that land went forth Ashur, and builded Nineveh, and the city of Rehoboth, and Calah. Okay, so we have Nimrod, the mighty man Nimrod, which we all know, we're all aware of. Okay, founded Babel, which became Babylon. We all know that. And the ancient kingdom of Akkad, which is very interesting, and I hope we can do something on that someday as well. But Nimrod, okay, was a Hamite, founding a kingdom of Hamites. All right. Interestingly enough, Ashur, okay, which as you know, Assyria is another name for Assyria. Ashur, this guy founded Assyria, okay, that Nineveh being the capital thereof. But out of that land went forth Ashur. Okay, so Ashur came out of a land, an empire of Hamitic peoples, to found his kingdom, wherein were gathered other Hamitic peoples and Shemitic peoples, because Ashur was Semitic. I may have forgotten to say that. Ashur was a Semite, not a Hamite. But all of these people, about 80% of the people that were around at this time in the plains of Shinar, they were, a bunch of Hamites. There were a bunch of Shemites too, so maybe I shouldn't say 80%, but I should say a bunch of Hamites, Hamitic peoples. Okay. And it goes on to, give you more the table of nations, right? Risen between Nineveh and Calah, the same as a great city. Mitzrayim, Egypt begot Ludim and Anamim and Lehabim and Naphtuhim. Again, these are all the majority of them Hamites that settled in various areas of Africa, as well as Canaan. And then it goes on, right? It goes on to the other nations. And why I say that is because everyone, mainstreams, even everyone in the mainstream generally accepts that Hamitic peoples are dark peoples, are dark-skinned peoples, black to be specific. Let's be specific here. Everyone in mainstream generally accepts that Hamites are black people, and I agree. I am of that opinion myself. History and historical record bears it out. We know that the Egyptians were black people. We know that the Sudanese were black people. Ethiopians, black people. All such African peoples. Okay, excuse me. But what we don't seem to accept, or what a lot of us fail to notice, is that a lot of these same peoples, okay, they're all from the same father. These peoples, a lot of these peoples settled in were not just in Africa, but also in the land of Canaan. Okay, so you had a thriving and large group, a large group of multinational, that's the word I'm looking for, multinational peoples, all in Canaan, that were black peoples, right? They were from the Akkadians, which was an ancient empire, from the Babylonians, okay, from all of the Shinarians, different people say different things. All of these people were Hamitic peoples, okay, black peoples. So that's why I wanted to establish that baseline here. Okay, so now that we have that established, and we know that Israel was supposed to go over and conquer these people, a lot of these peoples, not every single one, mind you, but we know that Yahweh named specific peoples that that Israel was supposed to conquer, some of which are right here, named down here in this area. Okay, so now that we have established that, let us jump forward a bit and continue. Like, as we all know, Israel was supposed to conquer Canaan and dispossess those people that were there for transgressing, for being basically anti-God, anti-Yahweh, totally. So they were supposed to dispossess them and all that good stuff. We all know the story. They didn't do what they were supposed to do. Oh my goodness, excuse me. Didn't do what they were supposed to do. They as a result, the Lord, they in fact turned and started serving a lot of the gods of these Hamites and other such peoples. And as a result, Yahweh kicked them out the land. Okay, first Israel and then Judah. But let us. I want to read. Let's take a look at what he said would happen to these people if they did not disobey. Okay, because he is right. We're here in Deuteronomy 28. Right, he's very specific on his blessings. What he's going to do if Israel does listen. Right, if it does what what they're supposed to, and dispossesses, and then keeps his commandments. But he is very, very, very specific, very specific and in depth about what would happen to them if they did not listen. And that's what I want to jump on for a moment here. Okay, curses for disobedience, and we're not going to go through this whole thing. I encourage anyone who hasn't read Deuteronomy 28 to read Deuteronomy 28 and recognize that it is in fact prophecy. A lot of people don't think of Moses as a prophet, but he was. I encourage you, if you have not read Deuteronomy 28, read Deuteronomy 28 and look through it through the lens of prophecy. Okay? Well, that's what it is. All right, let's go. All right, starting at verse 15, but it shall come to pass, this is Moses talking to the children of Israel, all of them, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe, to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field. Cursed shall be thy basket and thy store. Cursed shall be the fruit of thy body, the fruit of thy land. All right, it goes on. Cursed shalt thou be when thou comest in, and cursed when thou goest out. Okay, it goes on. The Lord shall send upon thee cursing. So you're not only will you be cursed, but then he's going to send cursing upon you. Okay, vexation, rebuke, and all that thou settest thine hand unto for to do, until thou be destroyed. Okay, why? Because of the wickedness of thy doings, whereby thou hast forgotten me. Okay, all right. Let's goes on. Let's go down a little bit. Because he says something interesting. Okay, it says something interesting. Verse 25 here.
The Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. Okay? Thou shalt go out one way against them and flee 7 ways before them. What? And and shall be removed unto all the kingdoms of the earth. Okay? That's interesting. Shall be removed unto all the kingdoms of the earth. Okay? All right, let's continue. The Lord shall smite thee, verse 28, with madness and blindness and astonishment of heart. Okay? Oh, it goes on. Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. Thou shalt build an house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof. Okay? Language here. I just want to note. I'm not saying a yay or nay to this yet, or anything else yet. But he says the wording here is interesting when he says, "Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her." Right? And then he says, "Thou shalt build an house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and then shall not gather the grapes thereof." Okay, he doesn't say, "Thou shalt build your house." Okay, he says, "Thou shalt build an house." He doesn't say, "Thou shalt plant your vineyard or thy vineyard." He says, "A vineyard." Okay, and shall not gather the grapes thereof. Okay, just pointing that out. All right, let's continue on. Thine ox shall be slain, verse 31, before thine eyes, and thou shalt not eat thereof. Thine ass shall be violently taken away from before thy face, and shall not be restored thee. Listen, thy sheep shall be given unto thine enemies, and thou shalt have none to rescue them. Again, and here we go. Verse 32, thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand. Okay? The fruit of thy land and all thy labors shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed always. A nation which thou knowest not. Let's continue. That's important. Okay, goes on, cursing. Verse 36. The Lord shall bring thee and thy king which thou shalt set over thee. All right, because Moses, this is Moses prophesying, like a double prophecy here. He knew they would set a king over them, because Israel had no king at this point. Moses is prophesying that they would set a king over them. All right, the Lord shall bring thee and thy king which thou shalt set over thee unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, and there shalt thou serve other gods, wood and stone. Okay, so this is the second witness of a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known. Okay, and right above here in verse 33, shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up. So two references right there to a nation that they didn't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but did not Israel know the Babylonians? Did not Israel know the Assyrians? Because remember, those are the two main peoples that deported them the first time, that defeated them and scattered them. Remember the Assyrians? It was the Assyrians that ransacked and destroyed the 10 tribes. Judah was left. Judah and some of Benjamin, some of Levi, they were left. But it was the Assyrians, right? Ashur from Genesis chapter 10 there, that dispossessed Israel the first time. But didn't Israel know of the Assyrians? Weren't some Israelites even dwelling in Assyria? Hadn't they had relations with Assyria, good and bad? Okay, same thing with Babylon. Didn't Israel and Judah know the Babylonians? Weren't they aware of them? Didn't they have commerce with them? Isn't it is that I could be getting it wrong, but is not it in first, or is it second? It might be Second Chronicles, where the emissaries come to Hezekiah from the king, and they're talking in the Assyrian tongue, and they're like, they're not talking in the Assyrian tongue, they're talking in Hebrew or Aramaic, and they're like, the emissaries for Hezekiah are like, hey, speak to us in the Assyrian tongue because we understand it. Okay, we understand it, so the guys on the wall don't hear and get afraid of what you're saying, right? Excuse me. So they knew the Assyrians. They knew They knew their language. They knew the Babylonians. They knew the language, and those are the two main deportations that they went through. Okay, the Israelites. But here it says, a nation that thou shalt not know, right? A nation that neither you nor your fathers have known, right? So not you guys didn't know it, and your forefathers back in Egypt. Well, actually, this Deuteronomy is not too long after they came out of Egypt. So it would be more like you guys didn't know it, your dad didn't know it back in Egypt, and way all the way back to the patriarchs, they didn't know this land, right? Why would he say that thy fathers would not, neither you nor your fathers have known? All right, that is key. A lot of us kind of just gloss over that. But let's continue because it's important. It is important. What nation is Moses referring to that Israel did not know, that Israel's forefathers did not know? Okay, couldn't have been Egypt. Couldn't have been Egypt. It couldn't have been, the Sabians, the Ethiopians. They knew all of these people. Pardon. It couldn't have been any of the Canaanites. They knew the Canaanites. God himself named a lot of the Canaanites, with the various subgroups of Canaanites, so to speak. It couldn't have been any of them. Who could it have been that these people did not know of? What nation? Let's continue on with the curses a little bit further, and then we're going to move on to something else. And thou shalt become an astonishment. This is verse 37. A proverb and a byword among all nations, whither the Lord shall lead thee. All nations. Okay, so these people are going to be taken captive. They're going to be taken captive and put into bondage, hard bondage. Right? Bondage. What's another word for bondage? Slavery. This is not me speaking. It's right here. Bondage. Let's read it. Let's read about it. All right. Thou shalt carry much seed out into the field, and shalt gather but little in, for the locust shall consume it. Thou shalt plant vineyards and dress them, but shalt neither drink of the wine nor of the grapes, for the worm shall eat them. Wait. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, verse 41, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. What is captivity? Captivity. The stranger that is within thee shall get up very high, and thou shalt come down very low. Okay? And it goes on, and it goes on, and it goes on. Okay? And again, why is this? Because thou servest not the Lord thy God with joyfulness and with gladness of heart, for the abundance of all things. Okay? And Deuteronomy 28, like I said, we can't go through the whole thing. We'd be here for too long. But those are some key things. Again, here even as I'm just scrolling, verse 50, a nation with fierce countenance that's going to come unto them, right? Let's read this real quick in its entirety. The Lord, this is verse 49. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far. Okay, far. From the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth. Not the hawk, not the falcon. The eagle flieth. Hey, do with that what you will. A nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. And as we just discussed, they understood, the Assyrian tongue, the Babylonian tongue, all these things that they were able to communicate with these peoples that they were intermingled with. A nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. And he, right, this nation shall eat the fruit of thy cattle and the fruit of thy land until thou be destroyed. Which also shall not leave thee either corn, wine, or oil, or the increase of thy kind, or the flocks of thy sheep, until he have destroyed thee. Okay, so now we've established that in so far right here at these curses that it's going to be a nation that Israel does not know, with a language, that they do not understand, and this nation. They're going to be scattered. They're going to be scattered into a bunch of nations all over the earth. But this particular nation is going to put them under slavery, under bondage. They're going to go into captivity, right? But let's get a second witness here. Let us get a second witness for some of this stuff, because it's not just in Deuteronomy. If we go to Jeremiah, chapter 17. Right? Verse, this is talking about the sin of Judah. You see the title here, the sin of Judah. This is just on the Bible app that I'm using. All right, it starts the sin of Judah. This is Jeremiah chapter 17. We're starting at verse 1. The sin of Judah is written with a pen of iron and with the point of a diamond. It is graven upon the table of their heart and upon the horns of your altars. All right, so this is, keep in mind, Jeremiah, the prophet Jeremiah, for some context, is speaking. He's talking to Judah. Israel has gone into captivity at this point. The rest, the other 10 tribes, have gone into captivity. They've been beaten up and such, and Judah is remaining. So this is the time, around the time of the Babylonian conquest, Babylonian Empire. Verse 2, whilst their children remember their altars and their groves by the green trees upon the high hills, O my mountain in the field, I will give thy substance and all thy treasures to the spoil, and thy high places for sin throughout all thy borders, and thou, even thyself, shalt discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in the land which thou knowest not. For ye have kindled a fire in mine anger, which shall burn forever. There is that reference to the land which thou knowest not again. Again, we know that they knew these other lands and peoples that we've talked about. We know that they knew them. But there it is again. Okay? Now we are we're back in Deuteronomy 28, because there's a couple things real quick that I wanted to bring back up to remembrance, and then also put into some perspective. Okay? So if we go to the last verse, after all the cursings that we just talked about, if we go down to the last verse of Deuteronomy 28, for anyone who says I was reaching with the slavery thing, even though I've showed again and again, but let's say you still say I was reaching. Verse 68 says, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. And just in case, because I could see someone already saying, oh, well, there, you see it says no man shall buy you. This word for buy right here, if you look into it, you can look into it yourself on your own time. This word for buy is would be better accurately translated redeemed, as in no man shall redeem you. Okay? So not no man will buy you, as in, oh, you'll be sold for bondmen, but no one will even want you. It's no man shall redeem you. All right. So there's the bondsmen and bondwomen, the slavery reference right there, just for anyone who is still thinking, well, I'm reaching. And this has not happened yet. Again, this Deuteronomy prophecy. This had not happened yet up till when Moses was talking. So anyone that wants to say, well, that was it, you know, they did the slavery in Egypt. That was their where slavery. Where Israel had suffered that 400 years of slavery. They were not in slavery in Egypt for 400 years. This has been debunked and disproven by many sources. I'm not going to waste much time on it in this presentation, but Israel was not in bondage in Egypt for 400 years. Okay? That was not and is not true. And also, if anyone wants to say that, refer them to Deuteronomy 28 and ask why are they talking about this slavery to be in a future tense if it already happened in Egypt. If they were referring to the slavery of Egypt, the captivity that Israel endured in Egypt, why is this being spoken of after just coming out of Egypt and in a future tense? Okay? All right. Now let's move on here. There's something I want to bring. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 30, right? Because it says some things that, well, let's read it first, and then I'll say. Deuteronomy chapter 30, starting at verse 1. And it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse. So Moses knows what's going to happen. When, not if, when. The blessing and the curse, which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations, whither the Lord thy God hath driven thee, and shalt return unto the Lord thy God, and shalt obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children, with all thine heart and with all thy soul, then the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity, and have compassion on thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations, whither the Lord thy God hath scattered thee. If any of thine be driven out unto the outmost parts of heaven, from thence will the Lord thy God gather thee, and from thence will he fetch thee. And the Lord thy God will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it, and he will do thee good, and multiply thee above thy fathers. And the Lord thy God will circumcise thine heart and the heart of thy seed, to love the Lord thy God with all thine heart and with all thy soul, that thou mayest live. So now, if we are going to say that these people, that this promise has been fulfilled, because it blows my mind. It blows my mind how many people think that this prophecy has been fulfilled that we just read about, or at least fulfilled in part. Because a lot of people will say, well, it's been partially fulfilled. He brought back Judah. Okay, so it's been partially fulfilled. Okay, if these people are a part of fulfillment of this prophecy, then one has to show me where these people fit into the things that have been said here, right? That they will serve the Lord with all their heart, right? The people, the modern day Jews, modern day quote unquote Jews over there in the sliver of Israel that we know of today are not. They follow. There's several different sects. Okay, kids. I'm saying sects. There are several different sects of Jewish people, Jewish religions over there in, if you will, in Israel. And they have different interpretations and different views on this, first of all. Secondly, they do not believe in Yeshua, the Messiah, as the Messiah. Okay, so that is already, that's disqualifying them from following him, from fulfilling this, following him with all their heart and such, and multiplying them like he said. Okay, he says he would multiply them right here. Also, someone would have to show me where these people were the victims of all of the things that it talks about right here. All right? Global slavery, a global slavery. They would need to be victims of a global slavery. They would need to serve nations that they did not know of. They would need to, all of these things would have to have befallen these people if they are to fit this mold. Okay? Now, all right, so before we jump and continue on, I wanted to backtrack a little bit and just kind of quickly mention, brief overview here, of Israel's, the Hebrews' relationship with Africa. A lot of people, I was surprised that a lot of people do not know or just didn't think of the fact that Egypt, the nation of Egypt, the kingdom of Egypt, was and is in Africa, was always and still is and remains a part of Africa. And the Hebrews, have had a long-standing relationship with Egypt / Africa. They've been going to Africa since the days of Abraham. We see here in Genesis 12, verse 10, there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down into Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was grievous in the land. Okay, and it's not just Abraham. There have been multiple people, multiple Hebrews that went into Egypt and other parts of Africa. Okay, we have some famous examples would be Abraham, of course, but then Joseph. Everyone knows the story of Joseph, and then even fast forwarding even more to King Solomon's time. A lot of it, this isn't quite known, and we don't have time to get into it today. If you'd like, perhaps we'll do a little documentary presentation on that. But when the Queen of Sheba, or Saba, came to visit King Solomon, Solomon gave her gifts and such, and she gave Solomon gifts. King Solomon sent back a what would be the word, regiment, group of important Jewish Hebrew officials and nobles, and they established a colony in Ethiopia. And I can provide sources on that if it's something we want to explore deeper. But this is just an overview of the Hebrews' long-standing relationship, with Egypt. I mean, for instance, guys, how everyone talks about the Ethiopian eunuch, right? That was trying to puzzle out the word of God. How this is just recently after Yeshua had been crucified. How does an Ethiopian eunuch, right, a member of Queen Candace's court, so he was a high-ranking official of nobility in Ethiopia, which we all know is in Africa. How would he have had a written, not just a oral copy, but a written copy of the prophets that he was trying to understand? And he's from Ethiopia, okay? Clearly a black African man from the kingdom of Ethiopia that Philip had to help interpret the scriptures for him and explain. But how does an Ethiopian have a written copy of the prophets? Written. And a nobleman, a noble Ethiopian, not like a commoner. Okay, so these are just things that aren't thought about. But I say that because it's important for me to establish that point as we move on to our next segment here, so to speak. Also, I just wanted to say real quick, because I know how people are, so I just wanted to say real quick. In regards to this last verse we just read in Deuteronomy, chapter 28, the Lord shall send thee into Egypt again by ships, by the way whereof I spake, thou shalt see it, by the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. I can see someone, jumping on this right here and saying, well, it just says Egypt. It's only referring to Egypt. Now, that couldn't be the case, that it would be referring exclusively to Egypt, as we just read all of these other things and showed a few other references for referencing a global slavery and being scattered among the nations. So it could not just be referring to a singular Egypt. But interesting that people will take this right here, right? And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. They'll take this right here, even though Israel and Egypt, you do not need a ship to reach Egypt from Israel, and vice versa. Egypt and Israel were connected by land. You could walk between the two of them. Okay, I'm talking about I'm not talking about this in this present day and age, of course. Obviously, I'm talking about back in this time. You could walk between the two of them. So why would you need a ship to get to Egypt? From Israel. Okay. Food for thought. But people will say, oh no, this is Egypt. He can't mean anything else. It's only Egypt. But then we'll go on and on and on all the day long about how Babylon, it's spiritual Babylon. It doesn't mean literal Babylon. It means spiritual Babylon. Oh, Babylon is spiritual this, spiritual that, right? Now, but then if I say, well, it seems to me that this could be kind of a similar thing, not Egypt specific, more like a spiritual Egypt, more like, what did it call Egypt? The house of bondage, right? From Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Was Egypt's name the house of bondage? Or was a point being made to associate Egypt with bondage? Okay? So people talk about spiritual Babylon, this and that all day long. But if I say, well, could this be the same kind of thing right here, since you don't need a ship to get to Egypt from Israel? So just wanted to throw that in there. Food for thought. All right. Now, let's see. I want you to. Here it is. Let's touch really briefly on the 10 tribes, because we mentioned the 10 tribes, right? And how they were conquered by the Assyrians. So this is Glee the Hidden Truth, .weebly.com, right? With some nice information here. And it says, okay, the lost tribes of Israel, the Assyrian conquest. Okay, the tribes of the northern kingdom. The tribes of the northern kingdom of Israel were conquered time and time again by different Assyrian kings. The tribes that make up the northern kingdom of Israel are Reuben, Asher, Issachar, Manasseh, Zebulun, Ephraim, Dan, Gad, and Naphtali. The tribe of Levi is included in this also. The Levites did not have an assigned land because of their priestly duties. They were spread throughout all the tribes of Israel. Okay, yes. The thing that the Assyrians did when they conquered a land was they would exile the inhabitants to another place and move their people into the lands, right? Which is, by the way, how we get Samaria, how we get Samaria, but how we get the Samaritans that are mentioned later on. When Nehemiah around that time when Nehemiah comes to rebuild the wall and help the Samaritans in Christ's time, why there was such dislike for the Samaritans among the Jews that came back and that were around in Christ's time, because they were a mix. They were victims and a mix of this right here. This is what happened to the northern tribes when the Assyrians invaded. These tribes were never allowed to come back into their land. In the Egyptian and Babylonian exile/slavery, the Israelites were allowed back to their land to rebuild after the time of bondage was over. Right? So, that's where Nehemiah and such comes in. Ezra and Nehemiah, when they the Jews, the Judah was allowed to come back and rebuild the wall and such. A remnant of Judah, that is. Assyrian king Tiglath-Pileser III, known as Pul, started off the invasion of the northern kingdoms of Israel, conquering Zebulun, Naphtali, Gad, and Manasseh. Okay, and it has a verse here from 1 Chronicles chapter 5. This is verse 26. And the Elohim of Israel stirred up the spirit of Pul, king of Assyria, and the spirit of Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, and he carried them away, even the Reubenites and the Gadites and the half-tribe of Manasseh, and brought them unto Hala and Habor and Hara, and to the river Gozan unto this day. Okay, so, and there's more. You can read up more and such on your own time, but I know we're all familiar with it. Just wanted to touch base. So, the 10 tribes were scattered among other Shemites and also among Hamites. Okay, and it'll, like I said, you can read more into that on your own time, and you'll see that they were scattered not only among Shemites but also Hamites and down into Africa and in other places. Now, we had touched on Israel's relationship with Africa, and I'm going to retouch on that real quick because it is important for the full understanding of this whole thing, right? And where I'm going to be going. So, as we know, we touched on some people that went into Egypt, right? Now, we know that Egypt was utterly Hamitic, okay? The Egyptians were Hamitic, okay? That we just read in Genesis 10 who they were descended of. They were Hamites, and we all know that Hamites are dark black people, with the exception of the Hittites, who were Hamitic, but they were lighter skinned Hamites, for which they are noted in history. Look that up. But we know that Joseph, for instance, I'm gonna touch on Joseph, and I'm gonna touch on Joseph, like that, like I did that. I'm gonna touch on Joseph from the Old Testament, and then I'm gonna touch on Joseph for the New Testament, because remember, Joseph was sold into slavery and went into Egypt, right? And then he became the ruler of Egypt and all that good stuff. And then his brothers came and to Egypt, and they didn't recognize him, right? Now, if we are to believe, right, that this is what they looked like, this is what Judah looked like, and by extension, Israel as a whole, because this is what, when you say Jew, when we think of Jews today, whether people consciously think of it, like it or not, when we say Jews, we think of all of Israel, okay? We just encompass Jews, even though Judah is only one tribe. We think of all Israel. We think of the children of Israel. So when we think, the children of Israel, we think of people that look like this, right? Now you tell me, if Joseph is sold into a land of Hamites, full of Hamitic people, he's in the court of noble people, right? He's of Hamitic, noble Hamitics, right? Noble Hamites. And he is, second unto Pharaoh, and all the people around him are Egyptians. But he looks like this, and so do his brothers. You're going to tell me that wasn't the case right here? Like that Joseph's brothers didn't come and wait a minute. What's this guy? What's this guy doing with all these Hamites? Who is this guy? Even if, right? Because you want to say, it was a couple decades since his brothers saw him. Even if that were true, Well, it is true. Not even if it was true. It's true. It was a while that they saw him again. Years, okay? But even if you want to say, well, they didn't recognize him because, it had been a while, I might not recognize my family member if, we had been separated for over 10 years. Okay, yeah, fair enough. That's a fair enough argument. However, if you and your family all look like this, and everyone around you, or everyone around your family looks like this, right? Because remember, Joseph was sold into Egypt. Joseph's brothers are still in Canaan. And as we previously established, Canaan was, just populated to the brim with Hamites. Okay? Hamites. Especially in the area where they were, where Joseph's brothers were. So if you and your brothers are the only people that look like this, look like these two, amongst people that look like this, don't you think that whether a decade or 2 or 3, that you go and see, you've lost your brother, you don't see your brother, but you see them, and you go and into this royal land of Hamites, and you guys are the only people that look like this? You might go, that's strange. Is this guy another Hebrew? Is this a Hebrew? You don't think that that's going to strike some warning bells? At least, even if you don't recognize them? Right? People don't think about this. Mainstream people do not think this way. Excuse me. But let's go on real quick. I mentioned other Joseph, right? I am, of course, referring to the father of Yeshua, the earthly father of Yeshua. Because if you remember, Yeshua, when Yeshua was born, King Herod had made that decree to kill all the firstborn males and such. And, there was that whole thing. And Joseph and Mary and with Yeshua fled into Egypt. Again, into Egypt, way later on. Why would they flee into Egypt? Perhaps to, hide and escape such a decree? But how are you going to hide, once again, because we know Yeshua was from the tribe of Judah, right? Specifically, I'm getting specific now. You go into Egypt, again, Hamite populated Egypt, even though this is a while later, still Hamite populated Egypt. You guys are the only ones that look like this. Or at least among the extreme minority. And everyone knows, hey, Jews look like this. You don't think that Yeshua might be like, among some Hamites? You don't think that all the Egyptians and other Africans, the Sudanese, the Cushites, the sons of Phut, and all of them, right? If we are to believe this, okay? If this is what you are to believe, remember, okay? I'm not making it racial. I'm just making an observation. Now, talking about Judah, I want to show you something. Okay, because we've talked about the Assyrian conquest, okay? But and Israel's relationship to Africa. So there's something very interesting that I would like to show you. This is a new and accurate map of Negroland and the adjacent countries, okay? And then you can look this up for yourself. Again, you just look up a new and accurate map of Negroland. I'm not sure if I would use Google, because not all of this stuff can be found on Google. You have to kind of do a little bit of digging, but if they haven't blocked the site, you should find it. Okay, now this map was drawn by Emmanuel Bowen, a cartographer of the time. This was way back in the early. Right here, they have it dated 1693 or 1694. Now, scholars are a bit divided over the the exact origin, the exact start date. Okay, but at least we have this is more or less accurate to give us an accurate a roundabout time, right? So, Negroland. This is obviously a map of Africa, and it's in a couple different pieces. I have this one part pulled up. This is northern and western Africa. Okay, but if we zoom into this map. All right. I want to show you something very interesting. Okay, Negroland. This is Northern Africa, so you know Egypt would be over on this side. We can't really get to it right now because it's only one piece. But you have the northern Northern Africa, Egypt, Morocco, such and such. And then down here you have Benin and Ghana and other such places that we know of today. But something very interesting I want to show you right here. You probably can see it by now. All right, this is the Slave Coast. For those of you that do not know, the Slave Coast was where Europeans got a lot of the slaves, like 90% of the slaves in the transatlantic slave trade. Okay, not only America, but the Portuguese, the Dutch, the British, a bunch of Europeans. Okay, right here is where they got there's the majority of slaves that were sold and shipped off across the waters here. But if we look up right here, we see Kingdom of Judah. Well, that's strange. Why would there be a piece right here, a piece of Africa right here in Western Africa called the Kingdom of Judah or Widdah? What's going on? So the question now on our minds, what we have to answer is, excuse me, what is this land doing here? What is a land called the Kingdom of Judah doing in West Africa? Now, I can already hear people saying, well, just because something is called Judah doesn't mean it has anything to do with Judah, the tribe of Judah, the Jews, God's chosen people. That doesn't mean anything, right? And to those people, I actually will say, that's fair, right? That's fair. Somebody somewhere called Judah, whether in Africa or anywhere else, doesn't prove necessarily anything other than that there is a place called Judah over here, right? However, as touching the things that we've already spoken on and Israel's relationship with Africa, remember that even after Israel was removed, the 10 tribes, Judah, and even Judah being removed, Judah actually was allowed to come back during the Babylonian, not during, but after the Babylonian conquest, where we get, the book of Nehemiah and all such, as I mentioned before. It is historically documented, and we're gonna go through some things in a moment. You're not gonna just take my word. I'm not just gonna say and leave it at that. But it's historically and biblically documented that Judah, as well as parts of Israel, but let's stick with Judah specifically, had fled into Africa. Not only had the garrison. That's not the right word. I can't think of the word. A colony, so to speak, such as I referenced from Solomon's time, in Ethiopia. But it is an historical and biblical fact that they had fled into Africa, different parts of Africa, at different times in history, such as during the Babylonian, go figure, Babylonian conquest. And how do I know that they ran into Africa during the Babylonian conquest? Not all, but some, right? Because a lot of Jews were killed during the Babylonian conquest. Some escaped and some ran off. But I want to show you real quick Jeremiah. This is Jeremiah chapter 42, verse 1, right? This is during the Babylonian conquest. Then all the captains of the forces, and Johanan the son of Kareah, and Jezaniah the son of Hoshea, and all the people from the least even to the greatest came near. These are people left. This is like a remnant of people from the Babylonian conquest. This is not all of Judah, but this is some. And said unto Jeremiah the prophet, Let, we beseech thee, our supplication be accepted before thee, and pray for us unto the Lord thy God, even for all this remnant, for we are left but a few of many, as thine eyes do behold us, that the Lord thy God may show us the way wherein we may walk, and the thing that we may do. Then Jeremiah the prophet said unto them, I have heard you. Behold, I will pray unto the Lord your God according to your words, and it shall come to pass, that whatsoever thing the Lord shall answer you, I will declare it unto you. I will keep nothing back for you. Okay, so they want to know Jeremiah. They want Jeremiah the prophet to tell them, hey, what do we do, Jeremiah? What's up? How do we deal with this Babylonian thing, right? And it goes on. We're going to jump ahead to verse 42, verse 7, excuse me. And it came to pass after 10 days that the word of the Lord came unto Jeremiah, right? Then called he Johanan the son of Kareah, and all the captains of the forces which were with him, and all the people, from the least even to the greatest, and said unto them, Thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel, unto whom ye sent me to present your supplication before him, if ye will still abide in this land, then I will build you and not pull you down, and I will plant you and not pluck you up, for I repent me of the evil that I have done unto you. Okay? Be not afraid of the king of Babylon, of whom ye are afraid, and it goes on. Okay? But then it says, verse 13, But if ye say, We will not dwell in this land, neither obey the voice of the Lord your God, saying, No, but we will go into the land of Egypt. There it is again, where we will see no war, nor hear the sound of trumpet, nor have hunger or bread, and there will we dwell. Now therefore hear the voice of the Lord, ye remnant of Judah. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, if ye wholly set your faces to enter into Egypt, and go to sojourn there, then it shall come to pass that the sword which ye feared shall overtake you there in the land of Egypt, and the famine, whereof ye were afraid, shall follow close after you there in Egypt, and there ye shall die. Okay? So shall it be with all the men that set their faces to go into Egypt to sojourn there. They shall die by the sword, by the famine, and by the pestilence, and none of them shall remain or escape from the evil that I will bring upon them. Okay, so and we already know the evil that he's talking about, the fury. Okay, his as mine anger right here, as mine anger and fury hath been poured forth upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem, so shall my fury be poured forth upon you. Yada yada yada. Okay, now they didn't listen. It goes on. I'm not going to read all of it. You can check it out. It goes on. They don't listen, and they head to Egypt. And when they get there, this word comes to pass. Okay, they're killed and they scatter. Right? They scatter down. They scatter west and south. Okay, so now that in and of itself does not prove anything as far as this is concerned necessarily. But I wanted to just bring it to mind again, because when we're talking about Judah specifically, there is reference, and it's not just that reference that I gave you, but there are other references of Judah going into Africa to escape. Okay, so we have this map right here, right? Emmanuel Bowen's map with the kingdom of Judah on it. And we're trying to answer this question: what is the kingdom of Judah? What does this right here have to do with, if anything, with Jews, right? Judah. Well, let's see. Let's find out. Let's see. Oh, well, you're not supposed to see that yet. We'll get there. Hold on. Well, we're back at gleethehidden-truth.weebly.com. That's glee, G-L-I, thehidden-truth.weebly.com. And there's something interesting here, right? 70 AD, the siege and destruction of Jerusalem. Okay? This would be, 70 AD would obviously be after the death of Yeshua, after the crucifixion of Yeshua, but still during Roman rule, Roman times, right? Let's see what this has to say. In 70 AD, Titus and the Roman army under General Vespasian attacked, sieged, and destroyed Jerusalem and the temple. Yeshua predicted and prophesied about the fall of Jerusalem and the destruction of the temple. Yes, he did. This references Matthew 24. We're not going to read that right now. You can read that. We'll come back to this. This passage from Luke 9, this is Luke 19 verses 41 through 44. And when he was come near, referring to Yeshua, he beheld the city and wept over it, saying, If thou hadst known, even thou, at least in this thy day, the things which belong unto thy peace, but now they are hid from thine eyes. For the days shall come upon thee that thine enemies shall cast a trench about thee, and compass thee round, and keep thee on every side, and they shall lay thee even with the ground, and thy children within thee, and they shall not leave in thee one stone upon another, because thou knowest not the time, thou knewest not the time of thy visitation. Right? So that's scripture, and now we're supplementing scripture with history. The Jewish Wars, I'm sure some of you have heard of that. If not, it's a fascinating subject. The Jewish Wars started around 66 AD, when the Hebrews revolted against the authority of Rome. Okay? Because there were still Jews, actual Jews, in the land under Roman occupation. So in 70 AD, Titus, that's Emperor Titus, okay, he was the emperor of Rome at the time, and the Roman army invaded Jerusalem at the northern outermost wall. After 5 months of attacks, the walls of the famed city came tumbling down. The city was destroyed, and the temple burnt to the ground. The Hebrews were totally outnumbered by the Roman army. The Hebrews had around 24,000 in their army, while Rome had an army of 30,000. Over 1 million Hebrews were killed. 75,000 Hebrews were taken captive to Caesarea, and the rest fled to northern and western Africa to escape Roman persecution and slavery. Right? Because I've heard people talk about people, I've heard people touch on, not even talk about it necessarily, but touch on this war right here, the Jewish Wars, and how the Jews ran from Rome. But a lot of people say they ran from Rome and went north into Europe, right? Because that's how later on we had the Jews, quote unquote Jews, that ended up in Northern Europe, all the way from Eastern Europe, Eastern and Northern Europe, all the way to Western Europe, and even somewhat in the Russia area. Okay, that's where people say they ran. But once again, if Rome controlled the known world, all the known world, quote unquote, at that time, okay, why would people, because we already established that, this doesn't work, right? If you're trying to disguise yourself and hide, right? You can't look like this if you're trying to disguise yourself and hide among Hamites. It just wouldn't work if they were the only peoples around there that looked like that. We've already established that doesn't work. So if you're running from an empire populated, that's dominated by people who look like this, without the hats and such, people who look like this, why would you, if you look a certain way, a different way, why would you run into territory occupied and utterly controlled by said empire of said people? Wouldn't you go somewhere that was less out of their reach? Or not less out of their reach, that was more out of their reach, that they had less jurisdiction in. Because remember, eventually the Roman Empire extended down into Alexandria in Egypt, all the way into Egypt. So even then, at that time, they wouldn't have, even if they ran to Egypt, they wouldn't have stopped running. Okay, because Rome had at this time, by then, had reached down into Egypt. So, and you can come and check this site for yourself, right? Glee the Hidden Truth, gleethehiddenTruth.weebly.com. Okay, and right here we're quoting a historical account that they fled to northern and western Africa to escape Roman persecution and slavery, because the Romans sold people into slavery as well. All right, and then you can check this on your own time, where it gives a kind of a breakdown of the siege and all such things and certain dates. Right. Now, Israelite migration to northern and western Africa. After the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple, many Hebrews fled into Africa. Between the periods of Pompey and Julius Caesar, about 1 million Hebrews fled to Africa. Okay? That's just that they know of. About 1 million Hebrews fled to Africa, because they wouldn't have gone to Thrace or up into Europe, Western Europe, for instance, Eastern Europe, where Rome had heavy control. Right? The Hebrews hid and lived in Africa for over 1,500 years, from 70 AD to 1619 AD. George E. I'm probably butchering this, Lichbleu, okay? Sorry if I'm butchering your name, man. Author of Jewish Roots in Africa, had this to say in his book about the Hebrew dispersion into Africa. Pressed under sweeping regional conflicts, Jews settled as traders and warriors in Yemen, the Horn of Africa, Egypt, the Kingdom of Cush and Nubia, North African Punic settlements, Carthage and Volubilis, and areas now covered by Mauritania. More migrants followed these early Jewish settlers to North Africa. All right.
that's going to end part 1 of this presentation. Hope you guys gleaned something from it. I will have part 2 out shortly, and part 2 is not going to be as long as part 1. Probably about, I don't know, half the time, give or take. Maybe something like that. Something like that. Anyway, I'll kind of close everything out on part 2. But hope you guys enjoyed. Please like and subscribe. I have more such things coming. I talk about our history, our heritage, both ancient and recent. And I also speak on certain current events as I have the time. This has been The Israelite in America. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.